Shove it, man!
Alright my little friends, we all know the Big Show. He wrestled in the WWF from 1999 all the way up to 2020, and he's now in AEW as a commentator mainly. Opinions are mixed on his WWF run. He flipped from heel to face so much that he just got a bit annoying really. In this Hawk's opinion, he never quite reached his potential. He may have even possibly outstayed his welcome, but he has his place in the WWF history books for sure. But what about the WCW? He had a pretty lengthy stay of around 3 years there, and it's not really talked about that much, minus one little fight on top of a building. So once again on the Shove It show, we have to ask, was it any good? The Big Show's going as the Giant in WCW. He first showed up at Slamboree 1995 as a man who was seemingly stalking the Hawkster, and for a brief time he was apparently Andre the Giant's son. He wasn't really doing a whole lot, I guess he was still in training, but towards the end of 1995 that would change. Okay, the Giant in WCW, was he any good? The Giant is paired up with Kevin Sullivan and a faction called the Dungeon of Doom, a faction whose only purpose is to take down Hulkamania. Surprisingly, the Giant has already cut long promos right from the start, and they're actually good. Straight off the bat at the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view, he would have a match against the Hawkster. But this wasn't any wrestling match. It was two monster trucks smashing into each other on top of a building. Why? I don't know. Hogan's monster truck wins, but the Giant is a sore loser. He goes after Hogan and they fight on the edge of a building. Eventually the Giant loses his balance and falls to his death. End of the video. Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? But 10 minutes later, Hogan and the Giant have an actual match for the world title. He fell off a skyscraper and confusingly he's just fine. This was bad. How is he not dead? We all saw him fall. What, is there a giant-sized swimming pool down there? But now he will fight for the world title without a scratch on him in his debut match. Now, whilst it's not the most exciting match you'll ever see, it was literally the Giant's second ever match. He had one on the indies before WCW, so what was anybody really expecting here? And he got the right reactions from the crowd and it went with the good versus evil narratives like the Hulkster liked to tell back then. So for his second ever match, this was a good showing. There's a ref bump and the Dungeon of Doom all team up against Hogan. Jimmy Hart, Hogan's manager, attacks the ref, so the Giant wins by DQ. The Yeti, who should be called the Mummy, joins the Giant in hugging Hogan. It looks so dumb. It's then revealed that the title was able to change hands by DQ, and just like that, the Giant's the heavyweight champion. Despite everyone saying he wasn't the champion, it seems to be officially recognised as a title change. He even defended the belt once in a 10-second match. Literally by the end of the night, the WCW officials vacated the title. How this was even a title change in the first place is complete insanity. But it's in the history book, so hit me with a brick. Every single commentator said, the Giant is not the champion, he's stolen the belt. This is not a good start to his WCW career, it's actually a complete shambles. Worst title reign of all time. But I can find a small positive here. He's already part of the main event scene in the space of a few weeks. Unfortunately for the Giant, he'll have to wait a bit longer to get his belt back because the Macho Man was now the champion. The Giant kept losing matches by DQ. He was still feuding with Hogan too at the same point because this was the only point in the Dungeon of Doom faction. He clashed with Hogan in a steel cage main event at Super Brawl 6. Hogan also had one eye in this match. It must be one of the most boring cage matches I've ever seen. It includes an exciting 5-minute bear hug, no Yeti involved this time, a bad looking choke slam and Hogan beating him fair and square. The one-eyed Hogan beats up the entire Dungeon of Doom faction, they stand completely still like morons. A bad night for the Giant. The Giant started a short feud with Loch Ness. I guess they both wanted to be the tallest in WCW, or the heaviest. The Giant cuts a pretty funny rhyming promo on Loch Ness. I have to admit I'm actually digging his promos so far, even if I'm not digging his matches. Good stuff, but talking of not digging his matches, the Giant and Loch Ness had a pay-per-view match. And look, I know it's not the Giant's fault, but we're trying to find out if his WCW run was any good. We aren't trying to find out if it was booked well. So far, he's just been involved in a bunch of bad matches and angles. And this was the worst one so far. We're only half a year into his wrestling career, so I probably shouldn't be too harsh. But this was not worthy of being on pay-per-view, let alone an number one contendership match. It's just bad. Something good though on Nitro now as he challenges for Ric Flair's world title. We get to see some new moves and we get to see him use his power. Ric Flair looks like a little child being thrown around all over the ring. It's pretty fun. He even almost steals the Jeff Hardy Swanton Bomb. The turds were starting to fall into his nappy at that point, but it turned out to be more of a splash than anything. I was worried for a moment. Flair has to resort to multiple methods of cheating, but the Giant hangs on in there until ultimately he has it won, and then Arn Anderson hits him with a chair. The Giant also chokeslams Kevin Sullivan, so I guess this is the original face turn of the Giant. Excellent work, and this was exactly the sort of reason I wanted to make this video. Little gems like this. It was probably one of his best WCW matches in retrospect. Well, it's not actually a face turn in the end. We're going to have to wait for that one. Maybe WCW were just testing the waters to see what kind of reaction he'd get. He ends up standing tall by the end of most episodes of Nitro and he looks like a genuine threat. Yet again, Flair and the Giant fight for the world title. And I've got no problem with that because the last match they had was great. Well, this one isn't great, but the result is certainly great. The Giant wins the belt with a choke slam to a huge crowd ovation, followed by a stunned silence. They don't know what to do. Jimmy Hart has the mic and he almost ruins the moment, revealing that Ric Flair might get to go home with the women, but he gets to go home with the champion. Giant proclaims he will be a fighting champion, and as far as I'm concerned, this is his first world title win. The other one didn't count. Not bad at all for 6 months in the business, not many could have done better in that time, all good. And he will be a fighting champion, that belt ain't going anywhere for quite a while. And I have to say he looks like a complete badass, or that could just be because he stood next to the wacky Jimmy Hart. The Giant has this kind of whispering, angry way of delivering his promos. It's pretty good and it's a bit different. I really enjoyed his title defense at Slamboree 96 against the Stinger, Steve Borden. The Giant feels so powerful and unstoppable. This match also features the Giant trying a dropkick. I mean, he missed it, but at least he tried it. In the end, another good successful title defense for the Giant. Little known fact here is that we're running parallel with the beginnings of the NWO forming. I guess the Giant's title run is a bit overshadowed by the NWO. The Giant's chokeslam is a lot more devastating at this point in his career too. I've only seen Hogan kick out of it so far. Talking of Hogan, we fast forward to Hog Wild 1996. It's here that NWO Hogan beats the Giant for the belt. He did still look very strong in defeat, having to fight off both Nash and Hall at the same time. That second title reign lasted just shy of 4 months, by the way. Just the 3 weeks after losing his title, he joins the New World Order, becoming the 5th member of the group. Why? This doesn't feel particularly promising. I mean, why would he be doing this? He was fine as a main eventer. And I mean, Hogan took his title, and now he's going to be his little follower? What a bitch. This sucks Sonny Siaki's ass. Apparently, Ted DiBiase paid him off. The Giant also falls down the ramp in the middle of an attack. Unfortunately, he now needs help to win most of his matches, despite doing fine before. I know exactly what this is going to be now. He will never even ask for a title rematch and he'll never beat Hogan because nobody ever does. I can feel the blood boiling in the comments section. And I'm with you. And just to illustrate how far he's fallen, his next pay-per-view match is against a wild Slapnuts appears.
Jeff Jarrett.
And the only reason this one was happening was because it was WCW vs NWO. God, I can see the Giant vanishing into the background of this feud. Giant couldn't even beat Jarrett on pay-per-view now. And because it was apparently such an incredible match, WCW made the decision to make them fight again at World War III. Giant does get the win this time, but he does need help. God, this has been so bad since he lost the title and joined the NWO. Then later that same night, it randomly gets better. Completely against the run of play, the Giant wins World War III, which was kind of like WCW's Royal Rumble. They followed that up by barely having him on TV for the next few weeks. When he asked the Hawkster for a title shot eventually, he was punished. Hogan said he had to be the one who had the belt in the NWO. Later that night, the Giant refused to chokeslam Piper as an act of defiance against Hogan, and that was enough to get him kicked out of the group. The Giant choked Hogan and screamed that all the NWO guys needed to leave the ring or he'd snap Hogan's neck. This was a pretty cool moment, the crowd loved it. Then it got even cooler as the Giant took out 5 NWO guys on his own. This is officially a face turn if I've ever seen one, and it was certainly needed. No problem at all good. Straight away, it's better. He's kicking ass all over the arena and taking on the NWO on his own. He now faces the Hulkster 3 matches in a row. I think he's just become one of the biggest baby faces on the roster, behind Steve Borden of course. I know he gets a lot of hate for his turns throughout his career, but this one did make the most sense of any. Okay, against the Hawk, match 1, thrown out for DQ. Match 2, Giant gets screwed by a crooked referee, no finish. They also expose his ass after the match and say it stinks for some reason. Match 3, again no finish because the NWO rushed the ring. So he got distracted and he won't be going against Hogan again for a while. Instead, he forms a tag team with Lex Luger and they capture the tag belts. During the match, the Giant was jackknifed by Kevin Nash, an absolutely insane thing to watch. I can't believe you got him up for that. Not bad at all beating the Outsiders on pay-per-view, and it was pretty much a handicap match. This Giant is still being booked strongly. The chokeslam is incredibly popular at this point too. They were forced to return the tag titles the next night, but the teaming with Luger continued. I know I just said it, but everyone's going crazy when he motions for the chokeslam. This move is so popular right here. This team might not seem like much for him, but I've never seen him getting reactions like this. This is great. The only downside is he spends half of 1997 doing nothing but tag matches and squash matches. Hogan was off filming movies, so that feud didn't really have a proper conclusion. Hogan did return eventually as the Giant finally managed to win a match against him. Unfortunately, it was a tag match also featuring Dennis Rodman, and it was actually Luger who got the win. What happened next was a bit weird as WCW made the decision to go with Luger instead of the Giant, and Luger went on to beat Hogan for the belt. I'm almost lost for words, the story was already written with the Giant, he was so popular at this point. He'd never got a fair shot of getting his title back, which was stolen by Hogan in the first place. Yes, Luger was popular, but the Giant would have been a better choice. And on the same night, the Giant had a match against Mags, Lenny Lane and Scott D'Amore. Might as well call them Who, and Who. The Giant was stupidly extremely happy for Luger to win the belt, that should rightfully belong to the Giant anyway. Luger's a dick too because he smacks the Giant in the face during the celebrations. Yeah, this is bad, he spent most of 97 doing nothing but spinning his wheels, and we ain't talking monster trucks. By the end of 97, Hogan had the belt back, and the Giant, he got another shot. He had a broken hand though, oh, for f***'s sake. Match is thrown out for DQ again when Hogan's dominating. Kevin Nash assaults the Giant's bad hand with a baseball bat. The hand injury keeps him off TV for a bit. He returns at the start of 1998 to have another match with Hogan. And guess what? The Giant actually wins. The Giant beats Hulk Hogan 1-2-3. But if you just want to know what a punch to the gut feels like, here it is. The belt wasn't on the line, because of course it wasn't. It's all been downhill since the NWO, this is starting to slip into the turd territory. Just give him his damn belt, Hogan. Next up for the Giant is a feud with WCW's other big man, Kevin Nash, and he'd lose with devastating effect to Nash. A Nash powerbomb dropped him on his head. A man that size falling on his head. If I didn't know he survived and went on to the WWE, I would have thought he died right here. They'd used this as a storyline that Kevin Nash wanted to break his neck. This led to another match 2 months later at Uncensored 1998. Nope, Giant can't even beat Kevin Nash now it seems. Yet another disqualification match. This is getting so bad. He was the man in 96, now he's not even good enough to beat Kevin Nash. This whole thing is so annoying because he looks unstoppable 99% of the time, but then he's always stopped by NWO shenanigans, he never gets to take his revenge. You know how the Big Show is known for his constant heel and face turns? Well, I think I found the first one for you. When he joined the NWO the first time, that didn't count because he was already a heel prior to joining, but this one's different. The Giant rejoins Hulk Hogan in the NWO Black and White because they're feuding with the Kevin Nash Wolfpack. Why would the Giant want to hang out of Hogan? Yes, Nash has done things to him, but so has Hogan. And doesn't he have any interest in getting his belt back? Such a pointless heel turn. The Giant and Sting won the tag belts together, but they're tag team partners who don't get on. The Giant was only able to pin Kevin Nash because Scott Hall turned on him and hit him with the belt. Of course, the Giant can't get a clean win over Kevin Nash. The tag title win is pointless because Sting doesn't even want to be his partner, and he beats him in a match which means the Giant has to relinquish his half of the tag belts, and the Stinger beats him fair and square. You know, something's really getting to me in this run. Losing every match by DQ. You know, a DQ was supposed to be used to protect a wrestler who got DQ'd, but when it happens every week, it just makes them look like weak cowards. You WCW morons. You know there's 43 matches left of this run for me to watch, and he's DQ'd in 12 of them. So it's a Ken Shamrock gimmick. Another pointless tag title reign with Scott Hall this time. God, you thought 1997 was bad, 98 is even worse. The crowd now chant Giant sucks, and they're right. Finally, I've something to talk about by Halloween Havoc 98. The Giant has become so depressed that he's doing a smoking gimmick. To go along with this new gimmick, the Giant decides to do a top rope missile dropkick. Unfortunately, he hits his own partner Scott Steiner, who's substituting for Elvis. This led to the Giant losing the tag titles. Now I think I know what happened here. I think the Giant got so bored of wrestling the big man style because it clearly wasn't helping him get anywhere that he decided to try and flashy move. Maybe it'll get him noticed. Well, backstage officials were really unhappy with his decision. I don't care, I think it was awesome to see the Big Show doing a dropkick just once. I wanted to call something good, it had been a while. Not much else to talk about other than Goldberg kicking out of the chokeslam, and then incredibly Goldberg hits him with a perfect jackhammer. Incredible thing to see, and it wasn't like he only held him up for half a second. The final appearance of the Giant in WCW came on Nitro, January the 11th, 1999. He turned face again. This time he had been kicked out of the NWO because Hogan said there wasn't enough room in the NWO for 2 Giants. So it's Nash versus the Giant again. During the match, the Giant wriggled his ass at the outsiders, giving new meaning to the saying, "Don't look at my ass." Kevin Nash hit him in the head with a wrench, and that's the 3. So the Giant never got his win back against Hogan or Nash. He beat Hogan once in a non-title match, but he never managed to beat Kevin Nash. He joined the NWO twice, both times against Any Logic. He should have stuck with Jimmy Hart as his manager. That was good times for him, especially when they got to go home together. A month later, he debuted in the WWF at St. Valentine's Day Massacre as Paul White, and he was immediately made to look like a complete moron. Big Show has since said he was only being paid a fraction of what the other WCW main eventers were paid, so he ran down his contract. He had an excellent 96, a stalling 97 where the crowd still loved him but his booking went downhill, and then 98 was a complete joke. His moveset was only slightly more diverse than the WWE, but he looked like he could move about faster. He feels like a missed opportunity for WCW. Why they chose Lex Luger instead of him when it should have been him going after Hogan's belt is beyond me, and he was just made to look so dumb and weak for doing Hogan's bidding in the NWO time and time again, and all the DQ finishes too. There were definitely some really cool moments in this video, and I'm glad Hogan didn't kill him off when he threw him off the skyscraper at the start of the video. Now for the hard part, the Big Show in WCW. Was he any good? Yes and no. But we need a definite answer. We aren't talking about scenarios if his booking had been better, we need to grade what we saw as fans. Despite all the rubbish that happened, I found this run to be enjoyable. The crowd stuck with him, and when you get a good crowd reaction it makes things more enjoyable. He didn't turn face and heel too much. He felt like a threat for at least half the video. He randomly busted out and took some insane moves for his size. His promos were pretty good, so ultimately, I'm going to say yes, he was good. But it could have been better. And if you compare it to his time in the WWE, the answer is still yes, because he stuck around for too long like a turd in a broken toilet you just want gone. As always, leave future suggestions for Was It Any Good in the comments, and I'll see you on Saturday. As I leave your girl's house, you won't do nothing, you're a scared little mouse.